Hi, I'm Julie Weber of Liberate Ministries. Let's look at three things: guilt, shame, and anger. Let's also look at observations of a rape in a relationship of Tamar and Amnon, a couple from the Bible. Guilt. When we feel responsibility for wrongdoing, we are experiencing guilt. Guilt is a natural emotion that speaks to you about your actions or behavior. So what you believe about the difference between right and wrong will trigger guilt in you. It is personal. For example, you may do something and feel guilty about it. Another person doing the same thing doesn't feel guilty about it because their beliefs are different from yours. Guilt is the emotion that tells us to go back and fix the situation when we do something wrong. Guilt becomes a problem when we can't go back and fix the situation, like in the case of abortion. What the Bible says about guilt. In Genesis 37:26, we read, Judah said to his brothers, "What will we gain by killing our brother? His blood would just give us a guilty conscience." In this scripture, Judah and his brothers realized that they would feel guilty if they took the life of their brother Joseph. So guilt was triggered in them by their belief that killing was wrong. So it is the same way with abortion. When a person believes that it is wrong to take the life of their child, guilt is triggered in them. Guilt can be healthy because it lets us know when we violate values, things society holds high, morals, rules of right conduct, or boundaries, a limit you can't go beyond. So remember, guilt is behaviorally based. In other words, you can't feel guilty about something you've done unless you believe it is wrong. So when guilt is handled in the healthy way, feelings of shame, unworthiness, or embarrassment should lead us to conviction, repentance, and then to forgiveness. Shame. Shame is focused on how we view our inner selves. It is defined as a negative emotion that combines feelings of dishonor, unworthiness, and embarrassment. Guilt is focused on our actions and our beliefs that they are right or wrong. Guilt should not be confused with the emotion of shame. So even though they are closely related, it is important that we understand the difference between the two. So guilt says our behavior is bad, and shame says that we are bad. How shame entered the human race? Well, we were created for intimacy with God and others. So we achieve intimacy by being open, honest, and transparent. In the beginning, there was no shame. Adam and Eve were free from shame in their emotions, in their sexual relationship, and most importantly, in their relationship with God. Genesis 2:25. The man and his wife were both naked, and they felt no shame. Satan entered the garden, convinced Adam and Eve to pursue their own happiness and to ultimately take their eyes off of God. And shame entered the scene. So after their sin, Adam and Eve hid from God, knowing that the bond of intimacy was broken. The same is still true today. Satan uses shame to get us totally self-focused, our eyes off of God and onto ourselves. Genesis 3:8. Then the man and his wife heard the sound of the Lord God as he was walking in the garden in the cool of the day. And they hid from the Lord God among the trees of the garden. Healthy shame speaks to us about our limits as human beings. So healthy shame shows up when we sin and allows us to see ourselves as imperfect and capable of making mistakes. It calls us to humility and our need for God. So healthy shame leads us to repentance. Unhealthy shame is a very persuasive feeling that one is inadequate, flawed, and defective. Unhealthy shame tells a person it's your fault, you deserved it, there is something wrong with you. It is a deep sense of embarrassment, producing a feeling of wanting to hide, to pull away, or not to exist. It makes us feel like we don't measure up as a person and that we are not worthy to do most anything. So, unhealthy shame does not temporarily affect our lives the way healthy shame does. Instead of going away, unhealthy shame attacks our core identity by attaching itself to it. Unhealthy shame, when not dealt with, goes deeper and deeper into a person, so it is no longer on the surface anymore. As an example, a woman has had an abortion. Afterwards, she blames herself and she accepts the feelings of shame that tell her, I am a murderer. I don't measure up. I am beyond repair. Each time she sees an expectant mother or another trigger that reminds her of the abortion, those feelings of inadequacy get driven deeper and deeper into her like a spike being hit by a hammer. After years, that feeling of shame has been reinforced so often and driven so deep that the woman carries those feelings everywhere with her, into every situation. When dealing with shame, it is important to get to the root of the problem and not just the symptoms. The Bible tells us that Jesus defeated shame when he went to the cross. So when we, as post-abortive women, can recognize and reject the shame that tells us we are inadequate, we find ourselves on our way to healing. Yes. Because the shame-based feelings have been driven so deep into us, we need to work the spike out by rejecting those feelings of shame when they try and confront us. We need to address those shame-based feelings directly. Something like, yes, I made a mistake when I chose to abort, but Jesus handled my mistake on the cross, and I will no longer accept feelings of inadequacy. So each time we handle situations in this way, then we reinforce our true core identity in Christ, free from the grips of shame. Jesus won the battle so that we don't have to suffer from it. In Hebrews 12, 1 through 2, it says, Therefore then, since we are surrounded by so great a cloud of witnesses who have borne testimony to the truth, let us strip off and throw off any encumbrance, unnecessary weight, and the sin that so readily, deftly, and cleverly clings to us and entangles us. And let us run with patient endurance and steady and active persistence the appointed course of the race that is set before us, looking into Jesus, the author and the finisher of our faith, who, for the joy that was set before him, endured the cross, despising the shame, and is set down at the right hand of God. Anger. Okay? Some of you may be angry at the way people have mistreated you or misled you over the years after your abortion. So you may have some anger in you and feel that you were lied to in the abortion clinic, the doctor's office, or the location of your abortion. You may have anger that is built up over the years due to the unsettled issues of the effect of the abortion. Be assured that anger is a natural reaction to being lied to, tricked, or deceived. Our society has deceived us into thinking that abortion is the answer. I feel a righteous anger when abortion is described as a solution for women because of the injustice and the pain it causes. Webster's dictionary defines anger as an intense emotional state induced by displeasure. So anger is not just one-dimensional, it is multifaceted. Like a diamond, it has many faces to it. Anger is not simple, it is complex. So there are many different levels of anger. Every person has experienced anger. Anger comes when we feel the need to communicate that your personal boundaries have been violated. Anger is part of your defense system. If a person has to live without their basic needs being met or noticed by others, they can remain in an angry state and grow weary. This is particularly important to the post-abortive woman due to the secrecy surrounding her abortion. You know, often angry people have a history of angry parents. They have relationship troubles with spouses, relatives, or close friends because of their anger. So after years of struggling in their relationships, futility sets in and a pessimistic, what's the use, mindset to guide their emotions. Let's also look at observation of a rape in the relationship of Tamar and Amnon, a couple from the Bible. Rape is becoming more common today. It's a more common thing today. Rape is unlawful sexual intercourse with or without force, without the consent of the victim. Tamar and Amnon's rape story is found in 2 Samuel chapter 13. Observations from before the rape. Absalom had a beautiful sister named Tamar, who had a half-brother named Amnon. They were all three King David's children. Amnon fell in love with Tamar because she was a virgin, and he knew he would never have her. A cousin named Jonadab gets involved by telling Amnon to pretend to be ill when his father comes to see him, so he can ask for Tamar to come and cook for him and feed him. Well, King David agrees and has Tamar sent to Amnon. Tamar cooks for him, and then Amnon sends his servants out and demands her to come to bed with him. In verse 12, she says, "No, my brother," she cried, "don't be foolish. Don't do this to us. Such wicked things aren't done in Israel." And in verse 13, "Where can I go in my shame? And you would be called one of the greatest fools in Israel. Please just speak to the king about it, and he will let you marry me." observations after the rape. Amnon doesn't listen to her, and he rapes her. So Amnon's love for her turns to hate for her, and he has her sent away, which was worse for Tamar to be thrown out of his room. She was wearing a long, beautiful robe that was custom for the king's virgin daughters. So she ripped it and she put ashes on her head. Her brother Absalom sees this and he tells her to keep quiet because it is your brother that raped you. And he sends her to live at his home. Absalom never speaks to Amnon about this, but he hates his brother for raping his sister, Tamar. The last we hear about Tamar in the Bible is that she lived a desolate, lonely life in her brother Absalom's home. 2 years later, Amnon's life is cut short when Absalom kills him for raping his sister Tamar. Between the two of them, I would say they experienced some guilt, shame, and anger, along with other emotions and behaviors that crop up as a result of the rape that isn't mentioned in the Bible. To me, this sounds like they didn't get the help they needed. Neither one of them got healed from shame. Don't live your life like Tamar and Amnon, never getting the help you need and not being healed. Let's pray. Dear God, help those who are struggling to find freedom from guilt, shame, and anger. Help them to not live a desolate life. Amen. Thanks for watching. Live life liberated.